And it's like really important when we start talking about abilities, because I want to get back to abilities. When we start talking about abilities, to realize the fact that it's for them to communicate with you, whether it be a spirit guide, an angel, an ancestor, a past loved one, a mythical creature, whatever energy, a deity, a god, it doesn't matter. For them to communicate with you, several things have to happen. They have to either come up or down, and usually it's down. Like unless you're dealing with lower level frequencies, usually they come down to you to match you. So, there's always the other way, but usually they're coming down because most people choose to deal with gods or angels or stuff like that, right? So they're going to be coming down to meet your frequency. You have to come up a little bit in some sort of a meditative state, in some sort of putting yourself in the back seat, the seat of the observer state, to where you can allow the flow of energy. So that means releasing control, first of all. So if we're a little bit of a control freak in the physical, we're also a little bit of a control freak in spirit land. So you might want to look at that, like shadow work. But like we have to come on the same level. And when that happens, that's when communication can be bridged. Now, like frequency moves like frequency. So that has to happen off the get. So sometimes there's a physical barrier, a bridge that needs to be gapped. And more often than not, that's what it is. The very first one. And then it's literally our human conditioning. Because most people have seen a medium work online. So they think, right? Online, on television, maybe you got one read or something like that, or maybe you have a buddy, or you've watched ghost shows, or you have some precognitive, awareness of what things sound like, or maybe you watch someone do an interview talking about abilities or something like that. You have an awareness already. Great. That means you have an expectation. Fabulous. You're going to have to get past that. Because that's going to hinder you. Because just because, Martin over there, can hear every dead person doesn't mean you're going to be able to hear them crystal clear, especially not the first time. That may not be your innate ability. You may be a seer. You may get all images. You may confuse the shit out of yourself. Well, you're going to have to get used to that. You're going to have to get over it. You could either hate your ability because it's not like somebody else's, like Keys was talking about before, or you can roll with the punches and realize that you have a pretty fucking awesome ability that some people who hear would love to have. Yeah. I can't tell you how many people are like, you hear? And they're like, oh man, I only get pictures. And I get the vice versa. You see? Man, I only get hearing. Like, okay, great. Well, you can have them all if you put the dedication to it. Yeah. But you also have to get past that limiting belief of, oh, I can't talk to dead people. I guarantee you probably can. Like he said, go back to everyday abilities. You probably already doing it. You just don't realize it. There's different levels to everything. Flex that muscle. But once we get past expectation and our limiting beliefs of what I can and cannot do, once that happens, so say we're open, we've met frequency level to even begin communication, they're using your brain, your life experience, your physical vessel, pains, aches, feelings to communicate with you. That's how that works. There's only one sense that is out of 7 that is the knowing. Everything else,
my favorite,
requires your physical vessel.
Yes.
So as much as we can pretend, not even pretend, we want to think, of our etherical connections that we're, from the third star in Orion's belt and, we're from planet Zion. That's fantastic. But that may be a great thing to have back in your memory bank for them to pull on. But they have to use your physical body to do it. Your physical memories, whether you watched a space movie that's going to link you there, whether you read an article about that civilization that's going to pull you there, whether you know the stars because you're really into astrology and all this shit, and you really got into the stars and the planets and the deities and the gods and woo, they're pulling from that information. They're not pulling from something, especially not right off the bat. That's when you're awake. I should say when you're awake. When you're in dreamland and we're doing astral, that's a whole other story. But when you're awake and you're doing communication and you're working with your abilities, they're pulling from your vessel. They're pulling from the movies you watched, the music you listen to. They're pulling from the one time, that, you had a bad experience when you were little. They may re-show you all those things to get a point across. They may show you a dog or a dove when they're trying to parallel things. Some people use symbols, and some people are very, matter of fact. And they'll show you it and they mean exactly what they show you. And sometimes it's a metaphor, but they're using you to communicate. So if you're not in touch with you, how the hell are you communicating?
Exactly.
How is that working? And like, that's the whole point. If you can't feel yourself, if I can't feel my emotions, how are they going to give me sadness? If I have my humanity switch off, my death switch off, I'm like, oh, I'm not feeling anymore because I've thought my way through life because I'm in fight or flight, which been there, thought my way through life because I'm in fight or flight.
Yep.
Of course I can't feel anything. And then of course they have to put so much energy into it that it scares the shit out of me. Of course. Because they have to get my attention.
Yes.
So then not only did they get my attention, but they scared the shit out of me. So my want to go work with that energy again just went down a little bit.
Is now rooted
It just went down a little bit. Yep. Now we're in fear. And now we're further in our fight or flight.
Yeah.
Of being like, oh God. Like, they don't want to scare you.
No.
Not if you're working with your team, especially. Not if you're working with your passed on loved ones. They don't actually want to scare you. Like, so sometimes when people, kind of sit with that idea, like, well, I don't really need to deal with, the time that I was bullied in 7th grade to do my abilities. You don't need to. You don't. Like, you could go at it, but you're going to be hindered by the fact that you haven't. There's no rule book, but if you want to not be frustrated, this is what I tell everybody, especially in the private thing, like, we can skip it. Don't recommend.
No.
The second you come up against something and it frustrates you because you can't connect, you don't know why your messages are confusing, you feel stupid, you feel worthless, I'm scared of this, I don't understand, I'm getting angry, shadow work. I hate to tell you, shadow work. Because that all goes back to how you feel about yourself and the communication that you're trying to get across.
Yep.
We are the number one thing that hinders ourselves in communication. Because sometimes we forget, like, as much as we are the energy in the vessel, we have a vessel.
Yes.
And it needs to be dealt with.
Yeah.
It needs to be dealt with. It needs to be understood, needs to be healed right alongside of our soul. You know what I mean? So when we start getting into connections, they talk through our life experiences. They talk through our memories. They talk through our feelings. They talk through our physical body sensations. If you have deafened yourself because of your life was rough, I'm sorry, power to you. We understand. We have been there one way or another. It is not downgrading anything you've been through at all. Give it space, though, and stop shoving it in the suitcase for later. Giving it space is unpacking it from the suitcase. Allowing it to exist without giving you the need to have to be triggered or react from it, or the need for it to bother you that it's a part of your story.
Yes.
That's what it's about. Because when those things no longer bother you, guess what spirit can pull from now?
That.
Guess what spirit can pull from to talk to you about? Guess what spirit can pull from? They can give you memories of your situation. They also know that you won't be scared if they show you something of somebody else's situation. And they can also give you, I'm getting goosebumps in my arm, my hairs are like standing up on this. But they can give you all of this stuff that you can then turn around and be like, oh, okay, I see what's happening because I've been there. They're showing me this, and this to me means X, Y, Z. Does this resonate with you? Yes, no. And then if they say no, go, okay. And you bring it back and you go, And then you get more information. Okay. So they expanded. They showed me X, Y, Z. Does this resonate? Yes, it does. You're welcome. But if that no offended you because you weren't being neutral, because you felt some sort of way, or maybe you didn't even have the sense of self to ask if it resonated before you continued, like, then you could go all the way down that nope, doesn't resonate at all side. And it's that little checks and balances of realizing it's not for you. You don't do this for you. You do this to help others, right? You do this to be of service. That's why people call it a gift, because some people believe that not everybody has it. You do, but some people don't put the love and attention it takes to flex those muscles. You know what I mean?
No.
So I just thought